And I'm going to go right into this amazing panel that we have for us now. My name is Debra Giusti, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this panel on Ascension. I have done Ascension panels for the last 7 years, I think now, at Conscious Life Expo, New Living Expo, a lot of panels all over at different conferences. But I'm thrilled to be offering this panel live virtually, which seems to be what we're all doing now, which allows us to go out to so many more thousands of people. So I'm happy about that. And the theme for this panel is Ascension 2020, Year of Major Transition. And wow, let's just pause for a moment and acknowledge these very challenging times, but highly evolutionary times that we're all going through together. And I want to share that at the very beginning of 2020, I did a panel at Conscious Life Expo, which is a major conference in Southern California that's been going on for 10 years that I've done conferences. And 3 of the panelists here were on that conference. And the panel was definitely about pointing to all the signs that 2020 was going to be a major year of transformation for the ascension process. And even in our description, we said it was going to be an escalated time for ascension of humanity with increasing earth changes and astonishing upheavals in society. So those were the exact words. So I'm here to say, little did we know what we were in store for 2020. And so far, it's proven to be an ascension accelerator, as the whole world has gone into a major spiritual dark night of the soul for all of humanity, and which has served as a major catalyst for the ascension process happening now on the collective level for everyone around the world. So we're all being called, all of humanity, to pause, look within, evaluate our reality, confront our shadow on personal and collective levels, and all that's dysfunctional comes to the surface. The therapists, the leaders, the guides, they're really busy these days because there's a lot going on in people's reality as what they thought was real is taken away from them. But on the other side, we're also being called to open to new levels of consciousness and expanded ways of being as our world gets destructed, as we are being called to reset a whole new level of reality and receive instructions from the divine about our new level of divine mission that's happening now. And we're open to what you can call a very messy birth canal that we're in right now, but we're going towards the ultimate goal of planetary ascension. So this is not just happening on a personal level, this is happening on a planetary level. And you can see that if you just look at your phone, or your iPad, or your TV, on every level, the dysfunction that is not appropriate for the new world that we are creating is coming up to the surface. Everything's being deconstructed to be revealed and healed. So as within, as without, this is all happening on all these levels. So what's happening is this is a catalyst of change that's like a popcorn effect all over the world as people are waking up all over the world, pop, 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 pop. And as you navigate these changes, we are being supported by the higher forces, the higher realms. So if we can embrace it fully, all of this can lead to immense personal growth, increased psychic abilities, experiences of multidimensional realities, and especially using the heart and the frequency and love, which is all about the personal and planetary ascension process. So I'm really excited here because I get to go back to these expert ascension teachers and people that have had their own personal ascension process and find out what's really happening now with all these changes, with the COVID, with the political system, with everything that's happening every day, and how that's a catalyst for our own transformation. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to go right into the panel. So first of all, I'd love to ask, just target that question that we predicted at the beginning of the year, the astrological signs. A lot of psychics were predicting it. A lot of people were getting transmission that 2020 year of ascension, acceleration, and that's what's happened. But it's hard to know because it's such a chaotic, such a challenging experience, but we know that's part of the process. So I'd love to know from all of you in terms of your personal relationship with Ascension and the information you've gotten from your teachings, your guides, and all coming forward, what you can share about that. So I'd love everyone to answer that questions. And we have a little more than 4 minutes, which is great. I think you all got that question, so we're not restricted here. And I'd love to start with Meg Benedicte. Meg is one of my top Ascension teachers, and we actually started this panel together. She's a worldwide known for her Ascension trainings. She is the author, teacher, and founder of Quantum Access, which is a tool for Ascension. And she experienced a profound Kundalini awakening in 1994 that activated her spiritual ascension. And her mission is to accelerate everyone's ascension. So thank you, Meg, for joining again on another Ascension panel and being with us here on Portal to Ascension. So I'd love to know your perspective of what's going on the planet and with us now in our Ascension process.
Well, thank you for having me on the panel. It's always just wonderful to connect with all of you. And you know, I was looking back on our notes from the February panel that we did, where we were starting to kind of get a glimpse of what 2020 was going to be like. And for those who love to follow numerology, 2020 is it's a 22 year, and so this is the symbol of the master builder and the alchemist. And so think about that. This is the year of rapid alchemy, rapid deep transformation, and I can say that's probably happening to all of us in some areas, or not all areas of our lives. And it's also the year that really kind of officially launches us into the age of Aquarius. It started on February 2nd, was a 2/2/2020. So we had a powerful gateway that basically opened up an influx of consciousness that's coming onto the planet. This is probably what many people thought 2012 would be like, but it is actually 2020. And it is also, if you add 2020, you get a 4, and 4 is the numerological sign of foundation. So kind of think about that. This ascension is accelerating this year to build a new foundation for all of us. Think of it like we're grounding in the 5D earth plane this year as our new foundation. And so what does that mean? In a way, we have kind of these two worlds that exist on the planet right now. And one is the old patriarchal system, and it's pretty full of aggression and attack and divide and conquer. And then we have this other world that's really starting to kind of blossom and open and be available for everyone. And this is a world of compassion and collaboration and receptivity and creativity. It's really what we call the 5D New Earth. You've heard that term, but really what it is we're moving into living in unity consciousness. It's a new timeline of unity consciousness. And so these two worlds begin to become very distinct. And you will begin to, really start to catch where there could be, just habits or thought forms or unconscious program running through you that would still be coming up from the original patriarchal world. And so that's the opportunity this year to do a lot of transformation when that rises to your awareness or gets triggered by others or events. Lots of what we used to rely on is breaking down, even for us who used to travel to all these events, right? We're having to adjust to now meet online. And I think as long as you can kind of stay open and flexible, that's the new Earth paradigm, being more receptive to how the changes are going to help us and bring us together, but in a new way. It's really more on a consciousness level and a heart level. We're starting to connect more at the higher mind and the heart. And as this patriarchal paradigm begins to become really pretty repugnant, and the majority of the planet are rejecting it, it's losing favor, it's losing our attention, it's losing our energy. It's, think of it like that's what's breaking down, that's what's collapsing. And this is, we're seeing this, of course, in the astrology, because it's been in Capricorn, really hitting a lot of what's called the establishment or institutions or authoritarian regimes or religions or governments. Like, they're all getting shaken. And even in our own structure, in our life, whatever was established, that's getting shaken too. So we have to be kind of fluid and quick on our feet, be able to adjust and adapt, but really hold on to what matches your essence, your heart, your calling, your purpose, your passions in life, because that's what's going to open and blossom as we get into this, I'd say, past the solstice. The solstice is the big event that moves us into, it's a grand conjunction, moves us into more of the Aquarian age. And this is then allowing us to kind of shed our skins, shed our false identity, shed the ego control. We begin to take every part of us and start to integrate it. That's when you begin to live in unity consciousness, right? You're integrating your masculine, your feminine, and your human, and your soul presence. So this is all starting to come together inside us, like broken pieces, all uniting inside us to become a holistic being. And as we do this, the goal, of course, because that's what we're focusing on here, is ascension. And so we are, in a way, converting and transforming and rebirthing our vessel into a crystal light body, so that we can descend the soul presence and really live in our lives, our daily lives, as the divine soul. So we start to see through the eyes of the soul and speak the soul truth, and where our hearts are magnetized to what is near and dear to the soul purpose. And that's a huge transformation right there, when we are able to really honor and align and commit to our soul essence, our soul purpose, and be able to meet up with more of like our soul tribe, as you write about, Debra, where we begin to, you know, magnetize to each other these beautiful beings that are on the same journey, the same path, and we are sisters and brothers walking that path together. So that's what I see as 5D unity consciousness. That's our goal, and that's what we're ascending into.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you, Meg, for giving us that complete overview of what to expect. Thank you for opening us up.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'd love to go to John next. John Burgos, he has one of the best positions, the best seats in the world, because he has an amazing show, Beyond the Ordinary, that goes to hundreds of thousands of people every week. And he interviews the top Ascension teachers and multidimensional teachers and all the top people. So he gets to hear everything that's going on from everyone's perspective. And he's also going through his own ascension process. So he's very much committed and involved in this personally. So John, I'd love to hear from your viewpoint, what everyone's telling you, what your experience that this 2020 phenomenon is about.
Yeah, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I have the best job in the world. I say it. And there's so many of the panelists that are on this summit that have been on the show, and so many more that I so resonate with. So thank you for everybody bringing your truth into this process, because it's everybody's truth that is lighting up with the integrity of your heart and your mind combined as an embodied, masterful, aware presence. And so all the pieces that we bring in together with that intention, it's what's lighting up the new foundation that's being created. So back in the beginning of 2020, and it seems like every year for the last 8 years, I've been getting messages about what's to come. And 2020, I heard, it's the year where you don't get to know. It's the year you just don't get to know. Just be in surrender, and we'll show it to you as it comes. And that was such beautiful, nurturing guidance for me, because predicting what was to come in the way that it came, how do we plan for that? How do we prepare for that? And the mind can go to creating different scenarios and solutions for potential outcomes. But it's when the heart is in its I am presence, when you're in the I am, that the mastery of your ascended presence is what becomes illuminated. And so ascension isn't necessarily something that we're going to, it's something that we're experiencing on our personal journey on a daily basis. And we can breathe into that, not as something to attain, but as something that we are. The expansion of your light becomes a healing balm for perhaps some of those people who can't see the light as clearly as you can. And that's what this ascensionary process is awakening within me also. There's an embodiment phase that I'm feeling within myself and a lot of the speakers, psychics, and channels that I have on the show, where I find that the conversations are coming less from the collectives, perhaps, that they're channeling, or from that guidance, but it's from their own awareness. They're walking their talk, they're walking their embodiments and creating from that space. And from that, we can put into structures the new earth that we're creating, what we're striving for, what we're attuning to, both intellectually and emotionally. And so this ascensionary process for 2020 for me, again, has been a process of embodiment and also attuning what's coming through us, not condemning emotions or feelings or judgments that we would rather not experience, but being with them and allowing them to flow entirely through us instead of stopping short. Instead of stopping the wisdom and intelligence that is trying to nurture us into an ascensionary experience, if we were to truly be with it and embrace what's being birthed from us being whole. And wholeness does not come from being separate from those things that we'd rather not look at, but it's about being very clear, looking straight forward on the path and being awakened to who we are in the moment. And again, not condemning and not praising ourselves either. Because if we think that we've attained something that someone else has not, I want to invite you back into your humanity. I want to invite you back into that part of you that could remember that can access it. And it's the compassion, the awareness that brings forward the fortitude of where we're heading. So what's also happening, and one of my favorite things that I like to say is that it's the empath that's going to save the world. It's the empath that's going to save the world. But I also understand that all of us are going through stages of becoming aware of that empathy. And for me, there's 3 stages, if I was going to be really simplistic about it. There's the empath that doesn't know that they're empath. They're reacting to everything. Everything is a stimulus. And so everything's very sensitive, but it's unconscious. And so we're in reaction mode. We're in victimization, if you will. Then there's the empath that becomes more aware that there's a stimulus going on that's affecting them in a certain way. And maybe you'd rather not face it. Maybe you face parts of it. We go through our process of becoming more familiar with it. And then there's the empath who's become masterful with what's flowing through them at the moment and can be with it. That can be in the intimacy of the emotions, the awareness, the thoughts that flow through it and merge to create something new. So I believe the whole world is going through the awakening of empathy, whether we believe we're empathic or not. And it's through that and that realization that we start creating conscious new platforms, conscious ways of being. We start unifying outside of us what we're unifying inside of us. And that's the ascension process through embodiment that I feel that we're going through now. And again, I witness it over and over again through so many of the speakers, the channels, the psychics, the embodiers, if you will, that are presented on the show.
Great. Thank you, John. Beautiful. Thank you. It really is a personal process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Now I would like to bring Kaia on. She is very dedicated to the ascension process. She has a whole book that she's channeled called the Sophia Code, which comes from the Ascended High Master Council of the Divine Feminine Ascended Masters. And she has a whole teaching and a priestess group, all international around the world, where she empowers women to come into their connection with the divine feminine. And she's in touch with women all over the world, and it is her mission to empower the ascension. And I'd love to know, Kaia, what your perspective is from everyone waking up that you're working with, and what you see happening, and what the Ascended Master High Council has to say to you.
Hi, Debra. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. It's so lovely to be here with everyone today. So this year has been extraordinary. It's stretched me in ways that I didn't even know were possible. And I think a lot of people who are leading at this time feel the same way. We have initiates in our mystery school around the world, and we're growing so fast because people are desperate to finally wake up. The polarization of what's happening right now, not to mention everything that everyone's suffering, whether it's geographically from the earth changes, the weather modification, the amount of toxification in our society, what's happening with COVID, the global lockdown, unemployment, people are really hurting. And it's very challenging for sensitive light workers such as ourselves to really take in the magnitude of that. But that's what Ascension is. It's standing in the midst of the change and choosing to be the foundation of light that we said we would come here to be, as everyone decides for themselves in these very polarizing times. Am I going to stay in spiritual infancy, or am I going to finally go within and begin a process of spiritual maturity? And so spiritual maturity is not about perfectionism. Spiritual maturity is about the willingness to do the work within yourself and within your life. And so in the Sophia Code Mystery School, we work with the Ascended Masters to become sober from codependency, to become sober from our addiction to punishing ourselves for our own divinity. This is how we've ended up in this kind of multiple global crises, is that we've been programmed and conditioned for centuries to give away our personal power to an authority outside of ourselves. So this level of pain and suffering, humanity has been addicted to pain and suffering for its transformation up until this point for a very long time. But you reach a certain level of learning through pain and suffering, and it brings you to this point, this crossroads, where you say, I would like to learn about divine love from divine love now, not from the lack of it. And that's the big shift of needing to have all of this pain and suffering on a collective level to choose our accelerated growth into a more spiritually mature space where we're choosing the divine love within us. We're getting curious enough about our direct connection to the source, about the truth of our own sovereign divinity, which the Sophia Code declares from cover to cover, and how life-changing that truth is. It's just like, so much of what's happening out there is due to people giving away their power and being programmed into somebody else saving them. And we are here to save ourselves and this world through embodying our own sovereign divine light and our own God-given intelligence to download creative solutions at this time, not just for ourselves, but for our future generations, because it really is that pivotal game on moment for humanity and the planet. So I feel as though I've never seen so many people willing to do the inner work, but it's very confusing for so many people stepping on the spiritual path at this time, because I think a lot of New Age spirituality just spoon feeds them the idea that if you read a book or you take a workshop, everything's supposed to be, you know, great all of a sudden. And we are peeling off centuries of programming and centuries of pain while simultaneously learning how to download the light of our own divinity and how to operate from that space. That's an enormous undertaking to do in a single lifetime. And then to ask us to do enough of that as a collective where we can tip the scale in consciousness. It's a huge angelic mission that all of us have chosen to participate in. And I love that you said, Debra, it's going to be a hot mess, because it is a hot mess. And that's one of the most interesting things for me with the amount of people that I work with day in and day out. It's like people think spirituality is perfectionism. And it's so far from the truth. It's just like we need to become both God realized in who we really are, but we also need to become very human realized. And so I think this is a turning point where people are deciding, I've got to have compassion for my own spiritual awakening, or I'm never going to make it through my spiritual awakening. And I won't be able to help anybody else in their spiritual awakening. And so there's this great movement towards a divine feminine compassion and all-encompassing unconditional divine love that can raise us up and teach us how to reparent ourselves, so that we don't have to stay in spiritual infancy. We can really move into a spiritual maturity, which can only happen in the body. It doesn't happen by escaping our body or escaping some dimension. It happens boots on the ground, right here and right now, where we decided to incarnate into. So that's the kind of conversation we have in the Sophia Code Mystery School about Ascension. We've got a long way to go, and that doesn't mean right now isn't amazing, because it's truly amazing to see so many people waking up around the world. It's an honor to be here, to be of support in that way. So thank you for the opportunity to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you so much for that confirmation, because we know the pop, pop, pop is happening, but it's not pop, I'm awake. It's pop, I'm just beginning my process of this.
We're in the trenches every day, and it's unreal how many people are waking up right now. It's very exciting, and we need as many light workers activated in their leadership as possible right now.
Definitely, and thank you all, because all the panelists are doing that work of inspiring the leadership. So thank you so much. Great, and now I'd love to bring forward Billy Carson, who is an amazing being. He's got a perspective back to ancient history and ancient civilizations, all the way to the Galactics. He's a major researcher, has been doing it for many years. You'll see him on Deep Space on Gaia TV in the series Ancient Civilization. He wrote the book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. He has a wealth of background and information that all relates to the Ascension. So Billy, I'd love your perspective of what this is going on now, this blip in time that we're having that's activating us all, that has probably happened many times on the planet before as we go through these accelerated times. But share from your perspective what you can tell us about the 2020 year.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me back on. I really appreciate it. And thank you to every single one of the speakers here on this panel. All of you guys and women are very, very amazing. You know, 2020 is really, I started this year with a 2020 workshop. It was called Manifest Destiny 2020. And that was back in January and February, before everything really started going haywire in this year. And the whole premise behind the workshop was to teach people how to use the power of the light body inside of you and light consciousness to actually literally bring forth the reality that you're looking to manifest in your life and in your family's life. And so we went deep into the Hermetic principles. And in the Hermetic principles, the first principle is all is mind. And so we went deep into the mind and what the mind is and how the mind works and how the mind is intricately interwoven with consciousness, because the mind doesn't create consciousness, it downloads consciousness. And so I had to, you know, it's a stretch for people to really understand what that means, but there's a consistent stream of divine consciousness coming into this avatar body on a consistent basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's tuned to a specific frequency, or your avatar body is tuned to a specific frequency that matches that frequency of your divine consciousness. All consciousness is just one, but it's like dials on a radio. Each one has a specific number. So you can have 99.1, 99.2, 99.3. One may be me, two may be you, three may be John, so forth and so on, but it still stems from one main source. Just like a radio station broadcasts out on different frequencies, and you can pick up different stations all from the same radio station. And understanding that we're in a process now of understanding how do we use our thoughts to help bring forth the reality that we want. We're in a state right now of a situation right now, I should say, of information overload. We have police brutality, we have racism situations, we have injustice, we have pandemics, we have poverty, we have kids starving, we have pedophilia, we have all these things going on all at one time. Now, these things have actually been going on, but what's happened is we now have technology on our fingers, and information comes to us instantaneously. So what it happened to me as well. I start to see a new thing and a new thing and a new thing and a new thing and a new thing, and all of a sudden I started to lose my zen. I started to realize, I started to lose the understanding that how powerful my mind is, how to maintain my zen, and how to bring forth the reality. Instead of becoming a victimized mindset, how do I bring forth change? Well, you bring forth change through light consciousness, through your body, through your thought process, because every single thought generates an electromagnetic wave, and that electromagnetic wave is a light wave. All thoughts are waves of light. We can't see it because we only see 1% of the light spectrum, but they're all waves of light. And so we need to understand that if we're thinking negatively consistently, we're bringing forth light waves and frequencies that are going to then attract more negative energy and more negative information. Do we need to address issues as they arise? Yes, we do, and that's very important. But at the same time, there's also a point in which you can become overloaded. And there comes a time where you need self-healing internally. You need to pull back and take a break from certain information so that you can refresh yourself and renew yourself and focus on solutions instead of consistently focusing on the problem. I actually got caught up in this myself. I got so frustrated, and it's been a very long time since I've been very frustrated, okay? I haven't raised my voice to yell at anybody in close to 20 years. I've never yelled at my kids. I've never beat my kids, and I got 5 kids. They're all grown adults now, and I have 3 grandchildren. And this was a thing, this year, a few things started happening back to back that almost had me wanting to go berserk. And I caught myself, and I realized that my brain-heart coherence was out of sync. I needed to bring myself back in alignment. I need to slow myself down. I need to disconnect from some of this negativity. So I made a public post on my social media saying that I was allowing myself to fall into this negative trap, and that I myself need to step back, and I'm only going to post positive content, or content that can teach and enlighten and lift people's minds. For the next 120 days. I'm not even going to post. I don't care what current event it is. I'm probably not going to post unless it's something funny. So that's the decision that I made, active decision. Now, during this process, what did I do? How do you realize that you're living within your ascension process? You start looking to create or help create solutions or support solutions. This is what you have to do. And for me, the solution is, how many more people can I touch? How many more seeds can I drop? How many more people's lives can I impact? How many more people can I be of service to others? How much more can I help and assist? How can I enlighten more people to a better way of thinking, a better way of living, a better way of eating, breathing, and everything else? Well, it starts with us. We are the light workers. We have to be the light so that people can see that beacon, number one. So we have to be able to correct ourselves. Like I wasn't too egotistical to not say, hey guys, guess what? Even me, myself, I made a mistake. I'm getting riled up. I'm getting the dark forces are taking control of me, because why? I'm losing my true power, my true capability, which is to enlighten people. And I'm falling into the trap of complaining about this negativity. And so we have to understand that what we think is what's going to start to go out there. Those I Love Lucy shows from 1960 are radio waves or waves of light, just like a brain. And they're still traveling in space right now. Matter of fact, a distant civilization, if they could pick up those frequencies, they can watch I Love Lucy. The same thing with every thought that we think. Every thought you've ever thought since you was a little tiny infant till now is in space-time. So the Akashic records are real. This is real science. The book of life is real because everything is out there. All information already exists. You may think that you've gotten a great idea about something, but in true reality, most likely you mastered frequency and you downloaded it into your consciousness, you discerned it, and you acted upon it. So we have to get people to understand that we are already in ascension. It's already begun. The process is here. We're trying to get to a golden age, and this is the beginning process. We're like, the people that's getting that wheel turning, like in the Yuga cycle. And we're probably, in my opinion, in the Tetra Yuga, trying to get back to a golden age. But this is the beginning process, and mankind is going to stumble and fall. When the baby starts to learn how to walk, it takes a couple of steps, it falls. Then the brain, that is the universal consciousness, it makes the adjustment and says, okay, we need to balance here, we need to balance there. Baby gets up again, takes a few more steps, falls again, makes another adjustment until the baby can have a stable gait. Now what happens is the baby begins to try to run. As soon as the baby tries to run, falls, but keeps learning what it takes. And eventually, what is walking and running? Walking and running is a controlled fall. That's exactly what it is scientifically. Biologically, it's a controlled fall. We need to get to the point where we're in a controlled fall. We can see those missteps coming before they actually happen and keep ourselves upright. But we're in the beginning stages of this. So we are going to have times of brilliance, and we're also going to have times where it looks like everything's chaotic and everything's a mess. And this is what 2020 is right now. It's looking like everything is falling apart, everything's a mess, everything is a disaster. We're getting so much information overload. We've got to go back to the light consciousness. We have to start sending out positive light waves. We need to start meditating on how can we bring forth solutions to these issues. The issues that are bothering a person the most, whatever they may be for you or me, we need to focus and meditate on those, and meditate not on the problem or the situation, but what is a potential solution to this? And then how can we then put action behind those new downloaded thought processes and then bring them into reality? Because I think our true mission is to bring heaven to earth. So that's what the Ascension to me is really all about.
Thank you, Billy. Very incredible for articulating all that. It's a very active process. It's not just sit back and you turn to light. It's a very ongoing active process that we are beginning. And that's what we came for. We came for this showtime here. So here we are. So thank you very much. Thank you. And now I have the pleasure to invite Elizabeth April, who is a rising young new paradigm star. She's a cosmic channeler, public speaker, spiritual influencer, celebrated artist. At a young age, she knew she was different. She was able to perceive and live in multidimensional realities. Mm-hmm. She has a major YouTube channel that now has 90,000 subscribers. So what I love about bringing her onto the panel here is she's got a very young perspective. She's 28 years old in a very old soul body, but she talks Ascension big time. She knows what's happening, but she's got the perspective of the youth. So Elizabeth, so great to have you. And we'd love to know what you're seeing, even what you're hearing from your community of young people out there that are really hungry for this process and this transformation process that's happening now. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Debra. Thanks, Neil, for putting all of this on. I know that there was a Facebook mishap earlier. So, talk about, the targeting and all of that great stuff. And of course, all of the panelists, huge props, definitely second everyone else's opinion here. This has been really great and informative. And, a couple of things about the Ascension and the awakening process. It's been so much going on. And essentially, I want to kind of lay out a timeline for people. This is a timeline that I channeled from the Galactic Federation many years ago. And what they told me back in 2015, 2016, was that there was going to be this 4-year cycle between 2016 and 2019. And during this cycle, there was going to be an absolute collapse, ego death, dark night of the soul for all of the major spiritual teachers and leaders all around the world. And so, this is what I say, especially to not even just the panelists, but to those of you who are listening. I believe that the teachers are here, right? And we're here for a reason.
So if you kind of look back into the years between 2016 and 2019, and you think about, you know, did you change your job or career? Did you move your house or location? Did you change your relationship or romantic partner? You know, those kind of things are what you want to look at, is those physical 3D foundations in your life. And by collapsing those layers and collapsing those foundations, you actually allow yourself to rebuild those foundations in a way that better serves you for a higher purpose. So all of these teachers and light workers and leaders all had to do the work before the rest of the world was ready to do it, right? So I just want to remind all of you who have done that work between that timeline that you are a teacher, right? Whether you've stepped into that energy or not, you're being called to. And you had to make some major transitions and changes before the rest of the 8 billion people on this planet had to. And just like Kaia Ra was saying, you know, it's so important that we get as many light workers and teachers as possible on board, teaching their truth, fitting into their piece of the puzzle, because we have an entire population here that is rising up and awakening at this time. So now the second big timeline that we need to be thinking about, and that has been presented to me from the GFL, is between 2020 and 2024. This is going to be a complete collapse of the 3D systems on this planet at a global collective level. So, you know, politically, economically, environmentally, we're going to see this collapse happen, so that once again, we have the space to be reborn. And I know that there's a lot of teachers that say 5D and the awakening, the ascension, it's beautiful and it's light and it's love and it's powerful and you manifest really quickly, and you do, and it is quite incredible, but it sucks, right? And we've all been through that. And I think Billy and Kaia were also saying that, you know, it's a step-by-step process in peeling back these layers of old paradigms. And we're talking about ancestral layers, we're talking about past life layers, we're talking about karmic layers, we're talking about childhood trauma layers that we have to peel back to do that work. So it's really just this scale that we have to kind of, you know, ease ourselves into. And yes, things are going to get worse before they get better in the next couple of years. And that's important that we hold space for that. So what is the solution to this, right? Just like Billy was saying, it's important that we focus on the solution. For me, 2 things, right? And I did a lecture earlier today about this. It's about staying in neutrality, because when we're in neutrality, we take a step back from polarity. And right now we're moving in between polarity consciousness and we're moving into unity consciousness. We're moving from 3D into 5D. And 2020 is this year, it's this precipice where we're actually getting all of the old limiting beliefs and old habit patterns and old karmic energies hitting us just as hard as we are getting all of the new vibration, new frequencies, new realities hitting us simultaneously. This is what 5D is all about. 5D, this new earth paradigm, is not just all love and light, right? You don't just stop stubbing your toe on the table because you're ungrounded, right? You're still going to experience these hiccups in your life. 5D is about how you perceive what's going on throughout your day, right? We're still going to be dabbling in the 3D world. We're still going to be dabbling in polarity, but it's about rising above it and understanding that you have ultimate control over your reaction to what's happening. And the best place that we can be in from moment to moment to be above the 3D polarized world is to hold that space of neutrality, right? To be in 0 point frequency. Things like meditation. I know it's been rehashed over and over again, but you don't have to sit down for 6 hours a day to meditate in order to be in 5D, right? It's about incorporating this conscious awareness into moment of your life, right? Going out into nature, being with plants, being with animals, being with an experience that does not hold a perception allows you to once again experience that neutrality and that 0 point frequency. The more and more we can get into this space in between the chaos, the more and more we can utilize our free will and fully harness our reality to the highest of our potential. And that's what the Ascension is all about, right? It's just understanding that ultimately our observation creates this reality as stated by quantum physics, And as long as we're aware of that free will and that consciousness, then we can be the ultimate programmer, not just character in this game of life.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So clear, so much wisdom, so much clarity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to dive another level deeper with you all, because this goes way deep. And I'd like to start with John, because I think you have a real handle on the personal process. And this idea of the spiritual dark night of the soul being part of the ascension process. And even what Elizabeth said, it's, you know, a lot of us went through it before now. I know myself, I lost everything at one point in my life, all the money I had made, my relationship, my major divine mission business I had for 30 years. And that catapulted me into a very deep dive where all I could do was connect with source. So I have an understanding what it is, but most people would say, why that? What's the spiritual alchemy of that process that the collective is now going through as we've lost jobs potentially, we've lost our freedom, everything has been pulled back and we don't know where we're going. So we're in a collective dark night of the soul. But what is that spiritual alchemy, that process that cooks the soul to allow the ascension process to catalyze?
Oh, that's such a great question. And this relates to what the panelists have been speaking about also. But as I take it into my personal experience, and you shared some of the things that came up for you as you were going through that dark night of the soul, it's our ability to go even deeper into those recesses, into the shadows, again, that we were denied for so long, and to have a relationship with it, to be in the intimacy, because again, it has wisdom for us. It's asking us to be in a place that we've been turning a blind eye to, whether it's codependency, whether it's egoism that comes in a form, whether it's trying to control a certain aspect of life for its safety alone, rather than for the growth components. By going into the recesses of what you would call the shadow and experiencing it, our capacity for compassion grows exponential in the way that we can expect it. Our ability to relate another who's in suffering in a way that we couldn't see or hold space for becomes illuminated again. And when we have the capacity to tune into another with that depth of love and compassion, because we know we've been there. We've suffered through that. We've had that heartache. We've had that body pain. We've had that anxiety and that confusion that has taken us places that we were so unaware that we can get out of. And so when we can hold that depth of compassion, that feminine aspect that's coming alive in all of us, through that empathy, and again, that's the enlightened empathic. When you can drop into that, your capacity to hold the light, that doorway for another, lifts someone else up without you having to work to reach down for them. You become a buoy of what's possible in the world. And that's how we're shifting the collective also, by being willing and acknowledging those parts of us. And as we acknowledge it within us, then we can hold a space without judgment as someone else may be going through it, where we maybe thought someone else was an ego or someone else was controlling or manipulating or doing something else. We can see that there's a balancing that's occurring, and there's an organic unfoldment that's leading them through their own process of realizing that light and compassion within themselves. There's so many light workers showing up in different ways, and it's only our judgment of how they're showing up that is stopping us, that's condemning the light from becoming even more luminous than it can be. So as we surrender to it, as we come back to our internal process of what's coming up for us and why, rather than judging and comparing, it rises to a new intelligence that's being born within us. And then, like Elizabeth and Meg and Kaia and Billy, those downloads of information that we receive become crystalline clear. They don't come in with the distortion of a collective that is still in the illusion of the darkness. That clarity streams through with so much wisdom and such high frequency that as our cup fills up, as our being fills up with that light and overflows, we cannot help but to give to others from that overflowing cup. And that's what I feel is really coming through from that shadow aspect, that we're all going through the experience up in various forms as we become ascended, enlightened in ways that we probably never imagined that we could. But when you hit that level of compassion that you weren't aware that you were capable of holding because you had that experience, your whole life shifts and everything around you shifts in the process.
Wow, thank you, John. I'd say bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're
But
ready
yeah,
for it.
invite it in. It's like, yes, it's coming. And so we don't push it away. We don't damn it. We're like, oh, you're here for me. And so for me, it's like everything that happens to me is happening for me. And I say, yes. How could I not? It's all divine for me now.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'd love to go back to Meg, because she's been on this path for a long time now and has seen it all. And so as we go through the hard places of this personal deep work, what can we look forward to that's really able to emerge now? Because I know myself, I've had in my own process much more opening of my psychic reality, much more downloads of information, much more connection with my guides, synchronicities, operating by synchronicities, seeing the doorway, knowing that showed up for me, ability to manifest. There seems to be a lot of abilities. Maybe we won't totally turn to light in this lifetime, but there's definitely an evolution towards fifth dimensional consciousness that's happening in us that's possible. So can you give us previews of coming attractions of what we can look forward to if we really embrace this process, Meg?
Well, I definitely would be one of the old timers. I started 26 years ago with my Ascension process when the world was very dense and the magnetic field was really locking in the unconscious programs and patterns and habits that we were just kind of, you know, robotic, living our lives. And it's like the veils popped off and I'm looking around and realizing, okay, I'm seeing through like a different lens than most people around me. This is, in the mid 90s. And so it was a very solitary journey for a decade or more. But in a way, because other people were not experiencing it, it kind of pulled me inwards. Okay, this is not happening out there. All right, this is a whole inner process that's going on. I'm transforming from the inside out. And so it did pull me in, and I did lose, weekends meditating and just really being present now with this divine essence that I had no connection with. And that's what I've been seeing over the years, working with clients for over 20 years, is that I always want to connect to the soul presence to instruct what we should do in a session. And I would always get pulled, wait a minute, the soul isn't even in the body. The soul's out, in the mental body or in the aura. And I thought, what the heck is pushing us out of our bodies? What is disconnecting us here in this planetary field? And there's a couple things. There is the density itself. There's the layers of trauma from childhood and past lives. And then there's this whole electromagnetic field of polarity that's really kind of like an inner battle going on inside us, these opposite forces, and it just kind of disconnects us from everything. We've also been living in time constraints, and that also has locked us into what I would call, kind of the 3D linear left brain thinking reality that we've pretty much been dominating us. So we start there, and then we start peeling all that out, right? We start breaking free of the time constraints, of the left brain dominance, of the ego unconsciousness, and we begin this process of opening day by day, whatever little bit we can, to the higher divine presence, as you mentioned. And it's been interesting to observe this, not only going through myself, but now watching so many people awakening in the last couple of years, but especially this year. And we have to think about, there's this kind of first exhilaration when you awaken and realize oh, I'm not in the amnesia anymore. You know, oh, I feel free, and I can actually now start to control my own thoughts, and I can actually start to be more co-creative in my reality. But the problem is too, is when you initially awaken, you're kind of like you know, like a baby bird just learning how to fly. You don't have any discernment. You have zero discernment. So you are not able to actually determine what is your own soul talking to you, or it could be a lot of false entities that are talking to you. So this is the problem that I've been helping. I work as a deprogrammer. I work as a quantum healer to help people avoid getting trapped into, especially if you're coming out of one artificial simulation, please do not plug into another AI virtual reality or simulation. That is part of the problem that's happening right now in the Lightworker community. So again, I encourage everyone, when you awaken, please turn in, okay? Don't turn out to what's floating in the astral plane, because most of it is not real and it's harmful. So turn in and be present with yourself. Be connecting inside to your higher wisdom, because also with all this light that's coming into the planet, as each one of us opens and awakens, we're beginning to bring light through us. We're becoming a channel, a conduit of this, you know, universal divine light that's coming through us, you know, crystalline light, Christed light, unity consciousness, however you want to call it. We are becoming conduits of this. We're bringing it into the planetary field. We're grounding it in. That's part of our job here, is to deluge this earth plane with this light consciousness. But the thing is, as well, is it reveals everything. So that's what 2020 is all about, right? All this light that's building from all of us, radiating it everywhere in the world. It's revealing the shadow. It's revealing the false teachers and gurus and channelers in the spiritual community. It's revealing these false artificial simulations and conspiracies and virtual realities. It's revealing where you're still living from that old 3D system that's ego driven, and it's about money and power and control. We are having to evolve out of that. We're having to transcend that system. And so I see that ramping. I don't know if you guys are, but it's coming in all the sessions now. Everybody is dealing with their shit. Everybody's having to really face it. Everyone's in it. And thank God, so far as I'm seeing, everyone really wants to transcend it. So that's beautiful. It's where people are getting this spiritual courage and strength, and they're like, all right, I'm not letting this control my life anymore. I want to remove my ancestral patterns. I want to clear my core wounding. I want to be whole again. And I want to embody this beautiful divine presence that has been floating in the field. We want to be able to merge us into unity consciousness. That's what 5D is all about. And so I'm seeing this grow and get stronger. I'm also seeing in client sessions that if you have been here in the earth plane in past lives, quite a bit of what's coming up right now is getting triggered based on kind of the mess of our 2020 reality. So past life, unresolved past life trauma is getting triggered. And so this could take you back to the Orion Wars, the Atlantean collapse. These are all up, powered and potent, and it's why people are like battling it out there, because they don't even realize that battle mentality, that Orion War, ET, you know, we're going to win, we're going to invade, we're going to take over. This is running through people unconsciously. They have to work on clearing that, healing that. This is where the Holocaust is coming through again with fascism. We've got all the racism up, genocide. Like, you guys, this is the kind of the global shadow, the global trauma that is being revealed with the infusion of all this light, and we can't ignore it. We have to heal it, not only in ourselves, but on the global level. And so it is an opportunity I see as a great opportunity to heal and resolve this past history, resolve our karma, resolve and transmute the trauma and the core wounding, and become really the master souls that we are. This is why we're here, to assist humanity, assist Gaia into this higher dimensional earth plane. So it's a powerful time, and as everybody has been saying, it's a messy time. It can, you know, it can be devastating. There's times where I just sob with the pain of humanity. You know, it's just like, oh my God, what is coming through us? But we are the transmutators, and I've worked with Debra on this too. We've kind of tried to break down the ascension into 3 stages. So we've been talking about the awakening stage, which so many are going through right now, and then you go into this transmutation stage, and this is the deep healing work that we do. But as you do that, you're also kind of straddling the embodiment stage. The more that you transmute this past history and ancestral pain and suffering, you are creating such a sacred vessel for the embodiment stage. So you might feel like you're going back and forth through some of the stages, and you are, and it's okay, because it's all taking us into really becoming, in a way, as Billy says, the divine avatars that we are. We're going to become these walking, ascending beings on this planet, and we're all anchoring in this new earth hologram, this new paradigm. So I do see the kind of the rise of the shadow more, but I also see that the 2000s is when we're ushering in also the empowered divine feminine. And this is so important, because this is what's replacing that patriarchal paradigm, and it's increasing these feminine qualities, not just in women, but in men. Everyone is increasing, as John said, big hearts, big heart compassion. I had no idea I could run this much love and compassion in my heart ever before. I'm astonished, and I'm guessing it's probably going to keep expanding. So we're moving into not only embodying our soul presence, but these feminine qualities of heart compassion and creativity and empathy and receptivity. This is another thing that's come up in sessions for years. People are like, I can't make a living. I can't find my true love. I can't, you know, I can't. And it's because we've been locked in that kind of masculine left brain, aggressive, work, push, effort. We are opening up the feminine right brain of our intuition and our heart to receive the blessings that our universe is sending us that we've not been able to receive. Once you get that open and that flowing in, that is a game changer. You know you're going to be cared for, taken care of, loved, and supported 24/7. So these are the qualities that I see growing as we deal with the shadow that's also kind of growing right now as well. We're doing those together.
Wow. Thank you, Meg. Such a powerful and in-depth transmission. Amazing. Thank you. That's why I love you as my top teacher, top Ascension teacher for so many years. And that is such, yeah, such a great segue to inviting Kaia Ra back. Because Kaia Ra's mission is to empower the divine feminine. And so that was my question to her, and I'd love for you to go deeper into that. You have connected with a lot of the women ascended masters that have channeled through major teachings. It's part of your training. So you're really on the cutting edge of working with empowering the divine feminine in women and in men, like Meg said. But really, let us know what that phenomenon is of the divine feminine coming back now. That is such a strong part of the ascension process to be integrated in ourselves, both men and women. You have to unmute. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for that introduction. And that was so beautiful, Meg. Thank you. This has been such a fabulous conversation with everyone today. I'm so happy to be here. We could talk about the divine feminine for hours on end, but there's two key points that are really essential right now. The first is that the divine feminine, the most important aspect of the divine feminine is a word called communion. That we have the ability to commune directly with God with no intercessor in between us. And that means you can always tune in to the light of your higher self, to the source, whatever you call source, God, divine mother, divine father, and through the divine feminine intuitive gifts that are installed like an operating system in every single person on this planet, everyone has a direct connection to that source of information, that source of mercy, to that source of unconditional love, to that source of abundance. And so when we're talking about the divine feminine rising, we're talking about us awakening to the truth of our divine inheritance, which we talk a lot about in the Sophia Code. We are absolutely holy, sovereign, and divine with the capacity to speak directly to God. And that's not a crazy person thing. That's an essential thing for these crazy times. So it's just like, you want to be at the right place at the right time when half a state is burning down to the ground or a country's being flooded out. You should be practicing your direct connection to the source, to your higher self, to whatever you call that, because that's going to make sure that you and your loved ones, your community, your family, you're always going to be at the right place at the right time. And if, God forbid, tragedy does befall you or your community, you're going to have the resources of your divine communion to know how to rebuild from a completely new space of understanding of what we were learning from those tragedies. So that direct communion eventually leads to something that I call, well, actually Isis calls this in the Sophia Code, we call it in the Mystery School, oracular activism. We need leaders who are dialed into this divine feminine principle that at any moment of the day or night, we can tune into to not just wisdom, direct downloads of information. And taking those direct downloads of information, then this really interesting principle that's both divine feminine and divine masculine, we can take authentic, divinely guided action upon the information that we're receiving. And so a really beautiful archetype that embodied that would be someone like Saint Joan of Arc. It's just like, she was an ultimate oracular activist, just receiving downloads of direct information for how she needed to go out and convince an entire country that they needed to return back to their sovereignty. I mean, it was just such a huge act of courage. And so when we are having this conversation about the divine feminine, the two most important things to remember are communion and oracular activism, and that everyone can embody that, both of those aspects of divine feminine consciousness in their own unique way. Like, we've all come here as fingerprints of God to be the blessing for each other. We all complete each other. So, and that's another thing that you can only see through divine feminine consciousness, because divine feminine consciousness is community oriented, it's collective oriented, it's a unified field. It's a mother who understands that all of her children came from her. And so there's this continuity, generation after generation, of a consciousness that needs to be parented, loved, and nurtured. And that's another reason why the divine feminine is rising now to support us in this hot mess of a spiritual awakening that we're going through on the planet. It's like, we've got to learn how to embrace ourselves. We've got to learn how to speak kindly to ourselves. And we've got to learn how to actually pick ourselves up and fight for what is holy within us. Fight through our creative acts by downloading these solutions and having the guts to follow through on them and co-create with one another, moving beyond the ways that we've been divided in the past. It's just like, we don't have time for that anymore. And you know, that's the perspective of the divine mother. She's always like, okay, you ready to grow up now? Like, you ready to play nice with each other? You ready to build something amazing together? Let's play in that field of consciousness. So that's a little bit about why the divine feminine is so important right now.
Beautiful. And for men too, we're not talking about just women, and it's the divine feminine principle on the planet.
Divine feminine, this principle of oracular activism, it's this intuition. You could pretty much put divine feminine equals intuition. It's the ability to completely download and receive from your source. It's that receptive element that's allowing for this window of perception to open up and for you to download direct from the source any and all information that you need at any time. And that divine feminine principle exists regardless of any gender. And it exists men, women, and non-binary individuals. It's a principle of consciousness that we're embracing at this time. And you know, it's really scary for people to open up to their intuition, because when you open up to your intuition, you can't lie to yourself anymore. You know, you have to start living your truth. So it's an exciting time to see what happens when the lights of truth get turned on inside of us, because the divine feminine is on the move right now.
Great. Thank you so much. Woohoo.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now I'd like to invite Billy back and get his wide perspective of all his research, because I'm sensing that this amazing point in time is not as unique as we think we're so special. This is something that is cyclical, that happens to a planetary system as it evolves and changes. And you alluded to that there's a place we're going to, the golden age, and as even predicted in philosophy that we can study. And in ancient times, there were other ascension activated times. I'm thinking in Egypt, because I know I was in Egypt, or my soul was at that time, and that was a highly hot activated time. So maybe you can kind of widen this perspective and let us know from your total years of deep research, what's really going on this level.
Yeah. Yeah, all these panelists are so phenomenal. I'm really pleased to be even a part of this. When you look at going into the deep, deep ancient past, we're talking about deep into antiquity, many, many millennia, billions of years into the past. When you look at some of these ancient tablets and texts, and I've researched and read and studied over 1,000 texts, tablets, cylinder scrolls, cuneiform tablets, Tibetan books of the dead, Egyptian books of the dead. I mean, some of these cylinder scrolls, papyruses, Nag Hammadi scripts, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, you name it, I could just keep going and going. And it all points back to what I could say is one of the first golden ages that I can see, and that was in the Pleiadian star system. This Pleiadian star system is mentioned in Homer's Iliad. It's mentioned in actually even the modern day Bible. Of course, it's mentioned in many ancient texts. If you look at a lot of the artifacts, I have in my possession, about maybe 200 artifacts. And out of those 200 artifacts that I've collected from around the world, I would say at least 2/3 of them have a depiction of the Pleiadian star system on them. And so this the Pleiades location in the sky, that location, that region of space-time at one point in the deep, deep past, had an amazing golden age. That golden age was interrupted by a galactic war. Now, this is not me saying this. This is what I'm reading in actual ancient texts and tablets and papyruses. This war was a war that literally they used a weapon called the Brahma weapon, which literally exploded planets. And debris from those planets were crashing into other planets with living beings on them, and people were fleeing from that region. Now, the Pleiades appears from our point on Earth as 7 stars. It's really millions of stars. We just see the 7 brightest stars from our perspective on Earth, but there's a lot of life in that region of space. These refugees left and fled. They went to the Orion, they went to Aldebaran, they went to Sirius, they went to Epsilon Boötis, they went to various other star systems that we have in our galaxy, as well as some made their way to a planet which in the Enuma Elish in the 7 tablets of creation is called Marduk, or Marduk, however you want to pronounce it, which also made it into even the Torah and the modern day Bible, that name. And if you look at the Atrahasis epic translation, the planet name is Nibiru. It was gravitationally captured by our solar system, and then those beings who are all related to all the way going back to the Pleiades, many different species of people made their way to Earth at one point for whatever the purpose was. It's still a big question mark as to what the full purpose was coming here. In my opinion, a breakaway civilization of some sorts. But when you look at that, that golden age, and then you fast forward in time, as you're moving forward in time through all these scripts, you just start discovering other golden ages happening in different eras of time. And a golden age, according to the Hindus and the Buddhists, is 12,000 divine years, or in human Earth years, 4.3 million years for the full cycle. Okay, So full cycle of human lifetimes of 4.3 million years is 12,000 divine years. So in the yugas, you have it broken down into sections. You have the Golden Age, Satya Yuga. You have the Silver Age, Tetra Yuga. You have the Bronze Age, Dwapara Yuga. You have the Iron Age, the Kali Yuga. And then the cycle starts over again as we move around this gigantic wheel, okay? And in my personal opinion now, this is still up for debate, up to conjecture. Based off of what I've seen, where we are right now technologically and also spiritually, I believe that we're at the very beginning of a Tetra Yuga, which is the very beginning of a Silver Age. Now, there was a very small golden age on Earth just in recent times, but there have been, according to the Mayans, at least 4 golden ages on this planet before, prior to Homo sapiens sapien, which we are now. But the most recent one that you can like sink your teeth into would be the Egyptian golden age, where in Egypt, they literally had an age of peace, tranquility. They didn't have an army, no police officers, you know, no racism. They only focus on unconditional love, unity, arts, crafts, and their main goal and mission was how good they could be of service to others, and how they can develop themselves artistically and follow their passions. And so that was a phenomenal era, and the most recent golden age that you can really grasp onto, and you can like find it historically and say, okay, this was an actual golden age. Not just an estimated amount of time back, but an actual time period where you can say, wow, people really lived in peace and tranquility. What happened was outside sources were observing this golden age era in the land of Chem. At that time, it was actually the land of Chem before it was called Egypt or Egypto. And they said, wow, I mean, they're ripe for the taking. They have no army, no military, no security. They have nothing. So unfortunately, outside sources, or the Dark Brothers, as Thoth calls them, overturned their golden age era, which lasted for a couple thousand years. So for slightly over 2,000 years, there was a golden age on this planet in recent times. I call that era, that's not too far ago for me. To me, that's kind of recent, because geological timescales are a blink of an eye. And unfortunately, Egypt was overthrown 7 times by 7 different peoples around this planet. But we are in a process now of, we've gone through the cycle of going down in the dumps. We've gone through this cycle of trying to figure out who we are. We've got technology moving in a positive direction. Just 100 years ago, we were in a horse, buggy, and carriage, and now we can send remote control cars to another planet. There are still a lot of suppressed technologies that can actually help and heal mankind. And because of where we are moving consciously, what's going to happen is people in positions of power, people that are moving up into these jobs at these places, because thankfully there is a mortality rate, and people that have these old mindsets and these low density mindsets, they eventually have to move out and move on, because they're not going to be able to live forever. And new conscious people move into these different areas and start to release and unleash some of these suppressed technologies, some of these suppressed treatments for medications for different diseases that have been patented for so long. And you're going to see a gradual increase in lifespans as we're moving up this Tetra Yuga towards the golden age, up this side of the circle, going back up to the top. You're going to see an increase in lifespans. You're going to see things like certain types of cancers, not all, but certain types of cancers be eradicated. You're going to see a lot of pharmaceuticals start to change the way that they're being used and administered, and moving into more of a holistic type of a medicine, where pharmaceuticals that are just meant to mask and delay are going to be pushed aside, and things that can actually help to treat and heal are going to be brought forward. You're going to see the beginnings of frequency healing, frequency technology, using frequencies to heal sicknesses and illnesses. Instead of trying to use chemotherapy on a tumor, we will use a frequency that will match the subatomic frequency of the atoms in the tumor, and we will send a cancellation frequency to that tumor, and we will destroy the tumor without destroying any of the surrounding tissue. All these types of things are going to happen. People with severed spinal cords will be able to regrow spinal cords. it's going to be an amazing era as we move forward. In the next 30 to 40 years, this planet is not even going to look the same. But it's all beginning now. It's like, we're like the pioneers, so to speak, of this movement, where we're going to see a lot of old systems, removed, where you're talking about dealing with situations with unions that have been put into place for really a very long time, that unfortunately have an oversight over different institutions, and one of them being the police institution. I have nothing against police. Unfortunately, there are unions in place that enforce certain things. I think some of those things are going to be brought back and removed. I think that there's going to be a new way of training police officers moving forward into the future. It's not going to happen immediately, but you're going to see meditation. You're going to see anger management. You're going to see drug testing. You're going to see all these things are going to help make the police force better. I'm not a proponent of defunding police. I want to take that money and I want to help make them better people. I think that's what we need to be doing. We need to focus on how can we heal these people, because some of them, not all of them, but some of them are hurting, and their hurt and their pain is getting unleashed on the civilians. So we need to find a way to help heal these people and make them better at what they do, and not take away them. Taking away their money is not going to help fix anything. And even the educational systems are going to begin to change. Right now, we have children going into school from the age of 4, roughly in preschool or whatever, all the way up until 17. I think that whole system is going to be redeveloped. A lot of the stuff that I learned even as a senior in high school, that could have been taught to me when I was just in the 7th grade, to be quite honest with you. There's this whole delayed factor of teaching and learning, and it's all predicated on learning how to become a test taker instead of learning any real information. We've taught these kids how to take tests. I think the whole thing is going to be restructured into finding out individually what a specific child's talents and passions are when they get to a certain age, and then pushing them towards those passions and talents, so that by the time they get out of school, we have passionate, talented people that can move into a field of work that they're going to be excited and enthralled about, versus being depressed and dejected about, so that we have a lot more positive energy in the workforce on this planet versus what we have right now. People whining, complaining, and putting out low frequency energy. And I understand why, but there, I see so many kids when I coach basketball, went to college, went to 4 or 5 years, 6 years of college, came out with degrees, and they're just cashiers at grocery stores because they never knew what their passion was, and they weren't pushed towards that passion. They were just told, do this, do this, do this, do this, and get that, and you'll be a good person. And it didn't work out that way. They needed they needed some guidance, some real true guidance. And I think that's going to be the way that we're being pushed. And one of the things with 2020 that I noticed with this whole pandemic and kids now being taught at home, a lot of my friends' kids who have younger kids, they're being taught at home. I think that's phenomenal. It's showing us, when before people were going, oh, I could never do the homeschooling. I could never have the kids at home all day. How am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? But when you're forced into it, all of a sudden, guess what happens? You figure out a way to make it work. So I think that this is also an eye opener as to a couple of things. In other words, we were forced out of the work system. We were first forced off of the touring for speaking engagements and workshops, and everybody was forced into the house. And then guess what happened? We didn't know how the world would still function, but guess what? The world, every day, the sun rose and the sun set every single day, and people still are alive. So you can unplug from all these things, and guess what? The world's still going to keep turning, and everybody's going to still be alive. Are there going to be people suffering in situations financially and this, that? Yes, it is. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say is, all of a sudden you realize we discover and we become more innovative, and we find new ways to make things work, because the human being is amazing. Because of our consciousness, we have the capability to transcend issues and problems and things. We have the ability to adapt to situations. But I think moving forward, as we move around this cycle, all these things are going to become so much better. Education, lifespans, the way that we treat each other. I think that, you can't have a golden age with racism and brutality. And I don't think you can even have a golden age heavy on politics. Will there be some type of hierarchy? I'm pretty sure. but I think it's going to be a hierarchy based on, you know, how good you are at what you do and what is your service to others and what are your accomplishments in your area of experience or expertise in life. And that's how you grow up or move up this hierarchy of this ladder. But everybody will have equal access to the same opportunities. So all these things are going to be developing and changing. So I'm really excited about helping, being one of the pioneers of this movement, moving back into another golden age, because we are going to go there. Because the one thing about this galaxy, this universe, is cyclical. Now, one thing I have never read in any book, any text, any script, or any sage or elder has ever told me, nobody told me that we have to go back down again. Nowhere have I ever seen it written that this cycle, you must go down, you must go down, you must go down. It says that we go around the cycle and how many years roughly it takes for a civilization to rise and fall. Even Thoth talks about it in the Emerald Tablets. He traveled to other planets consciously and watched civilizations rise and fall. However, when can we maybe finally break that cycle, that time loop that we're stuck in of this rise and fall? Can we get to a point where we are so attuned to ourselves and the universe that we sustain a golden age and prevent the next fall? That's one thing that I would like to see as an ultimate goal, is to how can we sustain a golden age and prevent future generations from having to experience another Bronze Age and Silver Age all over again? How can we just sustain it? And I think it comes with just the right group, the right civilization that rises, and taking charge of that mission, making it a mission to sustain that next golden age so we don't fall again.
Wow. Thank you, Billy, for that transmission. Very clear, very inspiring. Amazing.
Thank you.
And that flows right into Elizabeth, because she's one that's going to be here maybe for another 50 years or maybe 100 years. So she's going to be around and see a lot happening here. And so I wanted to understand from Elizabeth what you see and what you think. And also you have a very deep connection with the Galactic Federation. And as we go through, as humanity goes through this ascension process, are we going to be able to become conscious members and really understand and participate at that level at some point? So what do you see for your life, for your generation's life, for the planet's life? What are you being told? What do you intuit? What can you share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Debra. There's so much going on. And I think, Billy gave such a great, incredible, in-depth overview of all the information that I've also been receiving from the GFL. We're in this huge cycle. We're moving into this age of ascension and awakening in 5D again. We've got to collapse the systems in order to rebuild them. Like I was mentioning before, education, politics, everything's going to look much different. I know firsthand that the solutions, even environmental solutions, are all out there. Free energy technologies are all out there. They're just waiting for that go ahead. All right, it's time, and it all gets released, right? So we are really on the verge right now at this time. And moving forward, this next generation is quite incredible. There's major issues with this younger generation, even younger than myself. So I'm in the millennial generation, moving into Gen Z, and I don't know what the younger one is called, but a lot of the problems, just like Billy was saying, is they're very apathetic, and even in my generation, the millennial generation expectation. We were given everything that our parents didn't have when they were growing up. So we didn't really have to fight to get what we needed, which is amazing, because all of a sudden that fight or flight mechanism in our own brain was taken away. And when that fight or flight mechanism, that 3D paradigm is taken away, it leaves room for that creativity. It leaves room for that conscious expansion. It leaves room for that 0-point frequency. But if we're not taught those tools, if we're not even taught that we are energy beings, then we fall prey to depression and anxiety. And you've got a whole generation right now that is growing up saying, okay, so I have everything that a 16-year-old, that a 12-year-old could ever possibly want and imagine. Why am I anxious? Why am I depressed? Why am I questioning everything? And why doesn't anyone have any of the answers, right? And that's how I grew up, feeling like no one had the answers, and I had everything but nothing at all, So it's really exciting to see all of these parents awakening their children, and a lot of the parents watching my videos and other, you know, panelists' videos as well, with their children, with their small children, and awakening them, I think is really quite incredible and beautiful. So really powerful stuff moving forward. And I want to just mention a little bit about alchemy. You know, when you kind of originally asked this question, and alchemy to me means transmutation, right? That's what alchemy is. And of course, taking full control and power over your own reality, and being able to create and magnify whatever it is that you want. But when we talk about transmutation, it's about understanding the darkness and bringing it into the light. And a lot of us right now are kind of struggling into these lower vibrational realms. I mean, it's kind of hitting everyone really hard, these awakening and ascension symptoms. And I just want to kind of share a quick story about transmuting the darkness into light. And hopefully this story kind of resonates with, you know, the listeners and even the panelists as well. So it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, I've been psychically attacked in all of the ways you could ever possibly imagine, pretty much my whole life, right? Even going into childhood. And so there was this one kind of maybe a month or two where it was just coming at me from all angles. And I was doing a lot of the quantum work, and of course that's where you kind of become a target. And so I was having this really bad dream, but really I also understand that they can kind of set up these dreamscapes. And so I was in this dream, or this dreamscape, and there was these 3 huge dark beings, and they were chasing me. And in this dream, it was just this never-ending running away, this never-ending fear, right? And it was so much fear. And I was running and running and running. And then halfway through the dream, I, you know, became lucid. I woke up in the dream. And I asked myself, I said, why am I running, right? If these dark beings that are chasing me are actually just souls themselves, if they're also just fractals of consciousness, a part of the greater scheme of the collective, then they're a part of me. So in that moment, I stop running and I turn around to face them. And they were huge, they were like 10 feet tall. And I just look at them and I said, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. And I said, you need a hug, give me a hug. So I literally spread out my astral arms, my dream arms, and I wrap my arms around them and I give them a hug. And at first, which is typical with these, you know, beings and entities, they start stabbing my back, right? And it drives more fear. And then I'm like, no, just hold the frequency of love. And that's what I did. And I held it. And I just literally filled my being, my essence up with pure unconditional love. And I gave that to them. And in that moment, it's like all 3 of them just burst into this, you know, like millions of little dark particles, and they transmuted into the light, right? So anyone who is dealing with your own deep inner turmoil, your own deep reflections, maybe you are of the younger generations and you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with anxiety, you need to realize that this is a part of the process to allow you to get back to source. And the number one thing that is always going to allow you to transmute the darkness into light is appreciation and gratitude. The more that we understand that those dark aspects are just aspects of self, just mere reflections of one another, of the ultimate source that is, that's when you can understand and have compassion and gratitude for those darkest aspects. And no longer are those aspects dark or hold any fear or power over you anymore, because you've transmuted them through appreciation.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you. And I'm sure the viewers can see now why I chose these 5 people. All of you have been amazing, amazingly deep, potent, real, important information for us to know. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And I'm going to end with one last question that's really important. You know, we've really framed it to what's going on, the challenges that we have, but we're in process. And I'd love to know your advice of the spiritual tools of what we can do on a daily basis to really support this ascension process, to support this transfiguration that we're going through now, to support this expansion of consciousness. in the most healthy, holy, loving way for ourselves and helping everyone else on the planet. So please give me your top spiritual tools. And we'll start with Meg again, because that's what she does all day, is help people with the tools of grounding their ascension process.
All right, thanks, Debra. So I think that's a key point, calling it grounded spirituality, because so that would be the first place I would encourage everyone, is just taking some time every morning when you get up and you start your day. Get grounded in your body, get grounded onto the crystalline grids of our 5D hologram, and really be intentioned that this is my foundation and this is my home and this is where I'm going to live today. And you can even command that I anchor and position myself and connect to and ground onto my ascension timeline. I do that every morning, and this then keeps you from kind of getting distracted, because there's so much out there. So, you know, just really being very purposeful and intentioned on your grounding and being present as often as you can through the day. I also think that it is important that we do pay attention to the energy that we're ingesting in. So everything's a bit of a kind of chaotic, volatile field out there. So we want to make sure, especially as we're developing into, you know, the awakened conscious empath, to be careful on what energy you're bringing in. And that includes everything, you know, that's not only just the food you're eating, it's the emotions you're engaging with, it's the people, it's the places, it's everything. So you start to be very discerning and careful what you engage with, what you let into your daily life, what you let into your field. I find that because I'm working with clients every week also. But I'm also empath. I can find sometimes where if I've empathed some of the volatility, and so every night I do a cleansing of my field. I do a salt bath. I do a clearing of anything I may have empathed in that I took in from the people around me, my clients, just Facebook, wherever I plugged in. Could even be there was a movie I was watching and all of a sudden I'm in bed realizing the movie's running through my mind. So I disengage and disentangle from all holographic realities that I've touched into that day, all energies that I touched into. So you're really careful with your field. You're keeping your field as clear and pure as possible. And then as everyone's mentioned too, you know, this isn't perfectionism. This is where you really start to have compassion and love for yourself and your journey and your challenges. And, you know, if there's days where you just feel like you're in pain, love yourself as much as you can. I didn't have that in the early years of my ascension. I didn't recognize that was a really big piece I was supposed to be doing. That one I missed. So just as we can share from our own experience, just be loving and caring towards yourself as you're going through this process. And I also think too, it's trying to be, we've talked about this as well, try to stay in the now, because our mind wants to take us out into, you know, supposed futures, or it's, you know, it's just obsessing on the past. Let's just try to stay in 0 point in the now, so that you're able to handle what life brings you. You know, the challenges are coming in, you know, the surprises, you're able to be kind of in that steady, balanced equilibrium and not get triggered, not get reactionary, but stay really in your presence in the now. And so those are some key points that I just try to do every day. And again, being the radiant conduit of love throughout the day. I find that our abundance is also linked to our heart. So the more that our heart is healed and our heart is in that joy, in that calm 0 point, the more you're able to receive in from the universe. They really are linked. So if you're finding that, I know when I started, my heart was locked down and had body armor and I could barely breathe and it was all tight, and I had to do some work. You know, I had to work with a breath worker. I had to work with, you know, healers to get deep into the heart and open it. And then everything started flowing in much more easily, more synchronicities coming in, because I opened my heart to the joy of this universe. I opened my heart to receive. So that's a key point, to pay attention to what's happening in your emotional body, in your heart. That will guide you on what you need to get any support on or healing work on. And so those are kind of some key points that I try to integrate. And I don't know, Debra, is this also when you want us to just share how to?
We'll go
We'll do that
around
later?
again.
All right.
Yeah.
All right,
Just
I'll stop there then.
Yeah, and so John, what are your top tips for navigating these times and the journey of ascension?
Well, in line with what Meg was sharing, and again, this came through an awareness about a year ago, and I heard you're going to go through a process, an initiation of receiving. It's like, wow, receiving, finally, yes, I've done all my work. It's finally time for me to receive. And it was a big celebration, at least egoically, that was coming through me. And I found out that initiation into receiving, and it's still unfolding. And I think it's going to continue to unfold for the rest of my incarnation here and probably into other lifetimes as well. How difficult it is to reprogram our ability to receive light, because we've been programmed for such a long time to be unworthy of it, or judging ourselves for it, or being in other places that again would condemn the beauty that we're inherently, divinely, rightfully built to receive. And so being in awareness where love and expansion and opportunities want to come in for you in different forms, and an abundance that goes beyond the affluence of material things, but really to that connection to source and how we reflect it in the relationships that we have with others, is a big initiatory process that we're all going through and will continue to. Again, as the consciousness of source expands, we continue to expand with it. So being in humility of what we're open to receiving and understanding and feeling the awareness within our bodies where perhaps we're contracting that. It's a huge part of our progression. Again, as Kaia said, our spiritual maturity that we're stepping on up to. And that light that we're saying yes to consciously, purposefully, with our full authority and power. And so that's one aspect. And then I would also invite all of us as well to get into a space of being aware of where our consciousness is flowing, not just how we're expressing our gifts and what we're receiving out into the world. You know, but Elizabeth mentioned psychic attacks, and Meg talks about this sometimes also, but being aware in our consciousness where we're psychically attacking others, perhaps, whether it's at the stop sign condemning someone because they haven't gone fast enough, or judging someone in our life, or comparing someone because they have, you know, a bigger following than we do in our platforms. Where are we psychically doing that to another, and just catching ourselves in the process? Again, not judging ourselves, but being aware that something different is attuning within us that's bringing about the unification of love, the unification of consciousness. And then we're cheering others for their success. We're bringing light to what's possible within them. And in that, we can't help but to benefit from it. Know that somebody else's enlightenment also is ours. And so becoming aware of that and attuning to where perhaps we're chipping away and bringing others down through our psychic capacities, because we all have it. It's a beautiful opportunity as this intelligence, as this maturity is rising up within us, to become more empowered on what we're creating through that energy as well. As Billy said earlier, you know, those signals continue on into the vastness of the cosmos. What are we putting out there? Be aware, be responsible, and create with your authority.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. All right, we'll go to Kaia. What do you have to suggest to us? Again, you need to unmute.
Thanks. I was just saying that everything that everyone has shared has been so powerful, and I'm so grateful for this panel of wisdom for our shared ascension. The way that I'm so focused right now is through the Sophia Code as a platform, as a mystery school, as a ministry, as a movement. And there's very specific practices for activating the spiritual technology of our body which allows for us to actually physically anchor the Christ light of our higher self, which allows for us to deepen in our direct communion with God, and then further allows us to actually mature through that light being anchored in our body, and learning how to operate our consciousness. It flips on an operating system within us, which then overrides a lot of the viral programming, the traumatic wounding, and the ego structure that we're battling with day in and day out. It doesn't mean you're not going to have hot mess moments, because we all have them all day long. But when you are learning how to function and operate from that Christ light within you, or Buddha light, whatever you want to call that source light, that can not only stream through you and flow through you, but stay within you, anchor within you as a unified field of light that you already are, that you downloaded and literally downloaded a human body into this world. When you did that, it came with the spiritual technology within every cell of your body to anchor even more of your divinity in this world. And that's actually the ascension process. It's like, how do we learn how to anchor that light day in and day out, regardless of all circumstances? And it's why I mentor with the Ascended Masters, and it's why I teach mentoring with the Ascended Masters worldwide. Because if you want to learn about the ascension process, you want to mentor with the actual people who mastered the process. And so in the Sophia Code cosmology, we call in a circle of light every day. And we call in specific key code mentors to surround us in the unified field of our own, of their sovereign divine resonance, so that we can actually practice getting used to what it feels like to embody our own sovereign light, which is going to kick up all of our stuff while simultaneously revealing to us all of our greatest potential. So those masters of light that we invoke around us, they're continually mentoring us 24 hours a day in how to reach higher, and how to surrender into this operating system and learn how to function from that space within us in surprising new ways, and how to forgive ourselves as we are, you know, in that hot mess experience of practicing what it's like to live from an ascended consciousness. So that's really, you know, the first thing I want to say is like, I had to channel that circle of light with the 8 key codes around me to, very much like what Elizabeth was sharing, deal with the amount of psychic warfare that I've dealt with since the beginning of my life, but I continue to deal with every day of my life as I serve this ministry. But it's just not a problem when you are invoking such high-level masters to stand with you, and legions of light, legions of archangels, and, you know, whatever Star Nation allies you're working with. I purposely work specifically with the Sophia Dragon Tribe, and that's who I'm calling in every day, and that's who I'm teaching people to work with. So we have, that would be, you know, the first thing I would say is like, really get to know the spiritual technology within you. And the Sophia Code is a motherboard blueprint for getting to know the spiritual technology of your existence that you have access to. The second thing is practice praying. And praying is simply talking to your source. It's talking to your heart. It's learning how to have a conversation with yourself and your creator, whatever your creator source is for you. That presence is always listening to you. Your higher self is always there to comfort you. It's always there to guide you. And the more you give yourself permission to have this conversation, even out loud. Anne Lamont's, she wrote, my most go-to prayer is, please help me, God. And it's just like that. It was one of my most favorite things she ever said. It was like, of course. It's just like, we can ask for help all day long. Prayer doesn't have to be 2 hours at an altar. A prayer can be a 5-minute pause, even a 20-second pause. Just be like recentering with your source and your higher self. Say, please help me. I want to operate according to the divine genome within me. I want to operate according to my higher self consciousness. Show me the way in this moment. It's just like, that's the everyday present moment awakening that, it's where the spiritual rubber hits the road. It's just like, are you willing to ask, receive through listening and communicating and being in that divine feminine and divine masculine dialogue? Because that dialogue is also going to bring you the next step, and you've got to be willing to take the next step that you're going to receive. So that's what I would share.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, Billy, what is your top tools? And unmute yourself.
I would say that my top tools, the first thing I would like to say is, in this 2020, Earth episode 2020, like I like to jokingly call it to the aliens, don't get triggered, okay? So right now we have so many things that are triggering us. And for example, on social media, you may see somebody post something that you don't like or you don't agree with, or in some weird way, it might offend your belief system or whatever. Don't allow those things to trigger you. Get control of your brain-heart coherence. Recognize the trigger is coming. Or if you post something and somebody comes and makes a negative comment on whatever you posted, don't get triggered by them to then respond back to them. Now, this is something that even myself, I'm learning and growing with over time. In the very beginning of my social media experience, if somebody says something negative about what I put up, I would try to respond back to them and then respond. How many people can you? One day I said, wait a minute, what am I doing? If I posted something and 20,000 people liked it and 30 people made a negative comment about it, what does it matter? The message got out there. Why am I going to allow myself to be sucked into energy vampires? Because what happens is, just like before, we were talking about those light waves coming out of your consciousness. So when you respond to a person that triggers you, even through the internet, they literally absorb your energy from your body, your life source. And how does that happen? The thought leaves out of your mind. You then put it into the little device, mobile device, or whatever you're using, a computer, to respond back to this person who made a negative comment. And that energy was alchemically converted to mechanical energy. Now it's converted back into light inside the device, because the light transmits up the microwave frequency to the cell phone tower as a light wave. Then it gets sent into space to a satellite as a light wave, and it comes back down in that person's region as a light wave, wherever they are on the planet, travels down that other cell phone tower as a microwave frequency. It goes into their device as a light wave, and then they open up the phone when they get a notification and they see that you responded. That photon bounces off of that device into their retina, goes to the back of their brain, and they get a satisfaction from that. They just ate your energy. They literally consumed your energy, okay? Don't allow yourself to be triggered by these people that are trolling your pages and your accounts on the internet. You're literally allowing energy vampires to suck you dry, and that will wear you out and wear you down, okay? The next thing is, let's focus on solutions. So one of the biggest things that I believe in is, when I don't like something, I try to create my own reality, you know? So social media, a lot of the mainstream ones, they have a lot of issues and problems with their algorithms and how they allow people to say things and not say things. And I created my own social media platform, you know? YouTube demonetizing a lot of people, demonetized my account. I created my own video platform. So, you know, I think the thing is, focus on solutions. And maybe you can't just say, well, I'll just create this and I'll create that. And that way, monetarily, it may be too much of a big deal. But if there's a situation that's really, really bothering you, and you're focusing and meditating on solutions to that problem, you can bring that problem to light, because we have to bring problems to light. But at the same time, what can we do to fix this problem? The law of attraction is going to start bringing into your life all the things that you need, all the people, all the key players to help you be a part of bringing change to this planet. That's part of the process. And it's part of the growing and ascension process. So we have to focus on solutions. And the next thing I would say, and the last thing, would be study to show thyself approved. We have a world now of a lot of information at our fingertips. We have panelists, we have books, we have all these, but we have a lot of people that are just focusing on what they see on a post here or on a post there, and they take it and they run with it. Not even looking into it, researching it, or diving deeper into it. Listening to us on here, phenomenal. Now dive deeper into these topics. Write some of this stuff down. Watch this over and over again, and start researching the information that we're talking about. Don't just take it for on the surface level. We got to go deeper. We got to dig deeper. When I read a book many times. I don't read the book just one time, because the first time is just a glance, a gleam of what's the knowledge and information is in there. You got to go through it several times, over and over and over, and then break different things down. If you don't understand a particular section, I would then even break down words and get to the root of the words to understand better what the author is trying to convey to me. We have to study to show thyself approved. To get to the next level, it's going to take more than just sitting back and listening to what you would call spiritual leaders or light workers or whatever. It's going to take you realizing that you are one as well, and you have to put in a little bit of work as well. I know we have kids, we have work, we have all these things going on. We're trying to overcome this pandemic and all these other crazy things. But one of the things that did happen during this pandemic, people had a lot of time. You know, did you ask yourself seriously, did you make the most of your time, you know, this, you know, in this situation? There's, you know, parents that were at home. Did you take your kids off the video games and spend more time with them and inject knowledge into them versus letting the video game continue to be the babysitter? Did you finally take some money and invest it into your own business? You know, it only costs $75 to $150 anywhere in the United States to invest into an LLC or an Inc. Did you finally work on your own dream? If you've been waiting to write a book, did you start writing down some of these pages? If you've been trying to, you know, do music, have you gone ahead and composed or written some songs? All the things that your heart desired, you kept complaining and complaining about that you didn't have the time to do. You got to recognize windows of opportunity, and you have to be able to jump through those windows, because windows open and windows close. So those are some of the things that I would say just to people to just be more in tune, don't get triggered, focus on solutions, and study more, research more, becoming a real investigator and researcher into the things that you're passionate about. That way it won't feel like it's too much work being done. At least you'll be involved in something that you're really feeling affects you in a specific way. And you'll have, you know, hopefully you'll have a lot of drive to want to really dig into that and get, you know, and really take a chunk out of it, so you can say, okay, I got this. Now I can probably share this with some other people in a way, from my perspective, that may enlighten more people. We got to keep dropping those seeds all around the world, you know?
All right. Amazing. Thank you, Billy. Thank you. And Elizabeth, you want to round us off with your top tips?
For sure, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely seconding everything that all the panelists have said. This has been such an incredible group. Literally, my mind is blown. Doesn't happen often, but this has been so much fun, so amazing. Two things I would mention. One is, so I do a lot of astral traveling, remote viewing. I do a lot of exploration into past lifetimes, both on and off this planet, I guess past future lifetimes. So I'm just like, I'm out of my body a lot. And that's kind of where you leave yourself vulnerable and open in that astral realm. We need to realize that the astral has both light and dark in it. So the one thing that I do that I learned a couple years back from interdimensionals was an invisibility cloak. So now every time I do any sort of spiritual work, anytime I, you know, download and upload into the collective consciousness, I do it actually in an invisibility cloak. This is just a metaphysical kind of energy blanket that I put around my aura and my astral body. I always set the intention with the invisibility cloak that nothing that does not match, anything that doesn't match my vibrational frequency can come into my space, right? So the one time me and my wife almost got hit by a car, and she was all pissed off at the guy who didn't see us. It was middle of the day, right? Bright, sunny in LA. And I told her, I said, I'm sorry, babe. Like, you know, I put an invisibility cloak on both of us before we left the house, so you can't blame him, you know? So this stuff really works, right? So invisibility cloak is kind of my number one go-to. And then other than healthy boundaries and everything else that the panelists have said, cutting cords is huge, right? We need to realize that every single time you think about anyone, you're creating a cord with them. Every time anyone thinks about you, they're creating a cord with you. And so it's really funny, after I get off a live video on YouTube, I close my eyes, open my third eye, take a look at my aura, and I literally look like a giant porcupine, because I have like hundreds of these white cords that are all connected to me. So I just kind of bulldoze all the cords and cut them all after a live video, because these people are, whether they're, you know, feeding from my energy or just connecting to my vibration or what have you, it's really important. You know, once again, to bring up my wife, we'll be in a conversation and all of a sudden, you know, the back of my neck will really start hurting. And I'm like, babe, does your neck hurt? Like right on the right side, like right in between this area right here? She's like, yeah, actually it's feeling a lot better right now. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I just took that on. I'm just going to go ahead and cut the cord. So we need to realize also that it's okay to cut the cords with your loved ones. It doesn't mean that you're getting them out of your life. It just means that you're clearing space from the old connection, which was in the last moment 2 seconds ago, and you're opening up a new space to create a brand new connection in the next moment. So invisibility cloak and cutting cords are my number one. Number two, go-to things that I use as my tools in the energetic space.
Wow, so valuable, all of you. Incredible. I just want to share such deep love and heart for all of you. Now the viewers can see why I chose this panel. You guys are amazing teachers, amazing commitment, wealth of information, and this is just a taste of what they do, obviously. So I'd love to go around again and have you guys share what you do offer as teachers, as guides, what your programs are. Just take a minute or two, and then I'm going to post your website in the chat room so people can connect with you and have more if they'd like. So Meg, would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. So for the past 25 years, I've been working very closely with Archangel Metatron, and I've developed an Ascension tool called Quantum Access. And this is a modality that you can apply to yourself daily, as I also certify practitioners in it. And I'm in the process also of creating a mystery school academy that I'm going to launch in January. We'll have lots of courses that you can take online to really dive into this modality. And what it's tapping into, of course, the Egyptian knowledge that we're all starting to bring back now. It's using sacred geometry, Metatron's cube, and quantum vortex energy, crystalline light technology. And we open this up around our field, and we use it to literally raise our vibration, clear out patterns, programs, trauma, and bring the soul into the body. So I do private sessions. I also have the practitioners who are available to help you in your own ascension. And I also offer monthly global activations. This is online. People from all around the world call in. I've been doing this since 11/11/2011, so about 10 years. And I take everyone on a journey to the Galactic Center, and we step into Source Stargate. And we do a lot of activations on our own personal ascension, but we do a lot of work in the planetary field. So this is grid workers who show up, and light workers who show up, and a lot of advanced souls who know it's in their blueprint, it's their mission to really influence the collective consciousness right on the planet right now. So I have one coming up that is on October 28th, Wednesday night. We're going to do a global peace activation before the US election. So if that's something that you want to join and participate in, that's coming up. It's free. It's one of my gifts to the community. Also, if you sign up at my website, newearthcentral.com, and get on my list, you can get a free meditation and ebook that really kind of launches you right into quantum access and get started. And so I'm just thrilled to be here on the panel. It's a joy to be here with all of you and to share from our journey and our experience. And that's part of us doing our soul mission, is sharing this out to the world. So thank you, Debra, as well.
Thank you so much, Meg. And her website is in the chat room, newearthcentral.com. And John, would you like to share what you are up to on a daily basis?
Would love to share. And it's this that we're doing here that I was inspired to create close to 10 years ago. And I was transitioning through careers and deciding, am I going to do my own coaching? Am I going to build my platform? How can I reach more people with my embodied awareness and bring it out and normalize this conversation to more and more people in the world? And that was really the impetus of what I now call Beyond the Ordinary Show. And again, it's been about 8.5 years that we've been running, and I bring ascension experts, embodiers, people who travel to different parts of the cosmos within themselves and outside of themselves. And again, normalize this conversation through their embodiment, through their example of what they're bringing forward. So really the true light workers and those that are leading the charge into bringing this consciousness into the masses. So Beyond the Ordinary hosts the most spectacular group of speakers that you can imagine, and so many more to come. And so that's one aspect. It's a free online summit. You can register at beyondtheordinaryshow.com. Give us your email and you'll have access to a library of interviews. And most importantly, also what's coming up now? What are we going through collectively now? And how do we grow into that individually? How do we embody the feminine and the masculine that we're merging into in our own synergy of consciousness? So that's one aspect. And then I was guided to start a membership site and living in the extraordinary. And that's where I'm teaching from my own direct experiences, what I've learned through other teachers, what we're assimilating through the symbiotic relationships that we have here collectively, and bring that to other people so that they can embody as well. And then I'm also really excited because there's new opportunities that are rolling out, and I'm taking this out into the mass media. So look for me on CNN, look for me on Good Morning America, look for me on major TV shows as a spiritual correspondent. The time is now, y'all. It is our time, and people are ready to listen to what used to be kept in the dark, or what felt like nobody could receive before because there was nobody to have this conversation with. And I'm here to tell everybody listening right now that it is our time. It is time to spread the love that you're enlivening within yourself. And thank you, Debra, for all that you do. This is amazing what you bring together.
Yes. Thank you, John. Beautiful. Thank you. And Kaia, unmuting yourself.
Thanks, Debra. This has been such an extraordinary evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to be in dialogue with everyone here on this panel. It's just been such a joy. I love the vision that you continue to curate again and again for all of us, Debra. It's really special. So the past few years have been really busy for me. I've channeled 3 mystery school curriculums. The first one is the Stargate 1 curriculum. It's over 40 classes in how to embody your higher self, how to activate your divine genome, and how to mentor with the Ascended Masters. The Stargate 2 curriculum is based on a body of work that I channeled called The Elegant Equation of Divine Feminine Christ Leadership. And so it really goes into the heart of what it takes to lead, to really step into your divine purpose, and what it's like to navigate both the highlights of your purpose, as well as the underbelly of serving a collective or even serving individuals. And it's a very authentic journey into all of your deepest insecurities or unworthiness about, your greatest potential, and revealing that. Those 2 curriculums build out a very strong inner foundation to be able to step into what we call Sophia Circle certification leadership. And so what that is the ability to lead certified 13 circle journeys through every chapter of the Sophia Code, which, as I've shared, is a motherboard for spiritual awakening to the truth of your sovereign divinity and how to embody that. So those are some of the offerings of our mystery school. I also have the Sophia Code Foundation, and for the past 6 years we've been offering the Heaven on Earth Prayer Collective every 3rd Sunday of the month for free. Ascension upgrades, activations, teachings, direct downloads from the Sophia Dragon Tribe. And we also have a whole series of activations and initiations on my website. And the Sophia Code is available on Amazon, both in French now. We just released the French translation of the Sophia Code, as well as, of course, in English. And we have a really strong prayer in our social media ministry. So you can go deeper with our community, our beautiful community, by reaching out to us at Kaia Official on Facebook, as well as Instagram and YouTube. So thank you again for this amazing opportunity to connect with everyone here, both watching live and on our beautiful panel. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaia. And Billy, what have you got?
Well, first of all, once again, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it. When you get the text message from Debra, you got to come through, okay? That's all I can tell you. When Debra sends a text message, you got to come through. You got to come through. So, I appreciate you, Debra. I know, I'm busy. I'm traveling. Right now, I don't know what country I would be in if it wasn't for COVID-19. I'm traveling right now, but I'm not in another country. But when Debra calls, I don't care where I'm at. I could be on top of a pyramid. I'm going to get on the panel. I have started my own TV network called Forbidden Knowledge TV with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.tv. And fortunately now we are on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, I just started a new series called Gratitude on Amazon Prime. The first episode is up now. So if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can watch Gratitude on Amazon Prime. And also the Forbidden Knowledge TV is on the iOS for Apple devices, as well as Android, Google Play for Android devices. Or you could just go to the website, forbiddenknowledge.tv, or 4bk.tv for short. I also created my own social media platform, which is Unite the 99. So UNITE the 99, the number's 99, because obviously we're the 99%ers of the world, and we're trying to unite them under one umbrella to say, hey, let's talk about all these topics here where we won't be suppressed, we won't have algorithms hiding our content and information and everything. So instead of, like I said, I look for solutions. Instead of complaining about IG and Facebook and the other ones, I just create my own platforms. So I'm excited about that. My book still is a bestseller, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Helps if I turn it over. Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson. It's been a bestseller for 17 months in Ancient Civilizations. And it's still kicking like in an incredible amount. I'm now getting it translated into 3 other languages. I'm excited about that. Also, I have 11 new books. Everybody keeps asking me, when my new book coming out? I have 11 new books in editing right now, 10 book series and 1 separate book. The 1 separate book will come out first outside of the series. The 1 book is called Being Woke Doesn't Mean Being Broke. I'm gonna erase all of these crazy concepts that people have been coming up with, thinking that if you're a conscious being, that you have to be scraping by with holes in your shoes, because that's not the case. I'm teaching you should be walking in abundance 24/7, nonstop. And that doesn't mean that you're a multi-billionaire or a millionaire. It means that your needs will be met when they need to be met, period. And so if we're teaching manifestation and we're teaching people how to manifest their reality and everything else, but they can't manifest an electric bill, we have a problem. We're missing something somewhere. Your basic needs should be met. And that's abundance. Your needs being met, if you have no worries of your needs being met, that's abundance. So that book is coming out. Then the other 10 are in a series set of my Egyptian mystery schools, which are also on the Forbidden Knowledge TV, where I go deep. I think we're on episode 21 now. There's 60 more episodes in editing right now. And there's over 2,000 shows on Forbidden Knowledge TV right now. Everything from cooking, yoga, consciousness, finance, meditation, I mean, you name it, the talk, conferences, workshops, lectures, and even licensed films that I think are great for the collective are up on Forbidden Knowledge TV, and more coming in every day. We upload probably about 20 to 30 episodes of new content every day. And we're hoping that by this time next year, we'll have about 12 to 15,000 shows, and hopefully somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200,000 subscribers. So it's moving very fast right now and doing very good. And of course, you can find me on forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4. And on there, you can get links to some of the other works that I've done, including on the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel, the History Channel, the Science Channel, and of course, Gaia as well.
All right. Amazing. All of you. And now Elizabeth again to cap this off with your offerings.
Yeah, so I think we've all been really busy. It's really nice to see not only just spiritual badasses, but these entrepreneurs as well. Like, it's really nice to see all of the panelists just, getting out there, So for me personally, mostly I just kind of release, free content and information on YouTube. I have stopped all one-on-one sessions, so please don't email me about a session. I'm really moving on to bigger and better things. I also just released this past year a masterclass program. It's 8 weeks, and it will shift you from the 3rd dimension frequency into the 5th dimension frequency. This is not about harnessing your spiritual gifts. It's not about astral traveling. It's not about talking to galactic guides. It's about overcoming your triggers and really just stepping through those limiting belief patterns. So if you still feel stuck in the 3D, then that course is definitely something to consider and take a look at. And then I also have a YouTube membership program as well. It's just $10 a month, and I put out tons of awesome content, deep diving into that membership program. And then I'm also offering Galactic Federation downloads and channels every single month as well. So about an hour and a half once a month. And I tune in to the Galactic Federation councils. Whoever needs to come through from whatever council, whatever species wants to come through to give us knowledge and information. Could be about 5G, could be about World War III, could be about the Ascension, could be about upgrading your biology. So that's really cool. And those tickets are just $11 on the 11th of every month. So if you're interested in hearing directly from the GFL, that's happening this October 11th. And you can check all of that stuff out on my website, elizabethapril.com. Thank you so much, Debra and Neil and all of the panelists for being here and having me on. This has been so wonderful.
Great, thank you so much. And I am also up to a lot of stuff. And I want to share the most amazing thing I'm up to, which is an event called Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe. And a lot of these speakers, all of them have been on it and will be on it again. It's an inspirational virtual variety show that we started during the lockdown. And we've been doing 25 shows now. We have prominent speakers like Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Greg Braden, and very potent subjects like what we're talking about tonight. And we have music, and we have entertainers and magic. So it's a really fun thing to tune into, and people tune in from all over the world. So it's the Global Peace Tribe coming together and affirming positivity and love and connection, and that we are the butterfly cells that are awakening and coming together. It's really powerful. So it happens every Saturday night, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'll also post that in the chat. And you go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and you just register on Zoom, and we also have it on Facebook. And it's amazing. We're going to keep doing. We have 13 new shows to the end of the year, all amazing topics of all forms of what's potent right now. So now I just want all the viewers to send these panelists so much love and appreciation. If you've seen the chat box, there has been so much love, acknowledgement, appreciation in the chat box for all of you. You are all amazing, and I know this is great for you because a lot of times you're alone with your own, torch, paving the way that Divine Mission calls you, and now we're together affirming what we all know is true and what we're all working towards. So much love to all of you. And I think this is amazing, and I think we're going to do this again. So we have me and Neil are agreeing that we're going to continue this panel format into 2021, because I think it's really needed for all of us together and affirm what we know in all our different ways that we look at things and we get the information, we put them out. So everyone stay tuned, because there is more of this to come. And thank you all. So much love and support. Thank you all.